My stock portfolio made me about $1,000 today between my Canadian and my US accounts. So in today's video, we're going to go through all the stocks, see what stocks drove that $1,000 in gains, stock by stock, and I'll give some thoughts on the stocks as well. Okay, so the first stock here is Allied Properties in my Canadian account was up about 0.7% on the day, so not bad. Overall, not a really big swing on the day given not a overly huge portfolio for me, and it was only up zero point 0.7. For those of you who don't know, Allied is a office REIT with a really big dividend right now, so I'm getting an 8% dividend because the stock price has been cut in half, but not really a big factor on the day. Going down, A&W went down about 20 basis points, so also not a big factor. The first stock that actually moved a bit here was Bank of Nova Scotia, Scotiabank up 1.3%. So that started to help me gain some money on the day in this account. Next was Car-Un. Car-Un, similar to Allied, another REIT here, slightly up about 0.4%, but not a big swing factor for me. Continuing to go down, cash. This is just where I hold cash in an ETF for some high interest income, but the stock doesn't really move day to day. You can kind of see over the month it slowly goes up in value, but no help there in terms of the $1,000 that I made today. Continuing down, Canadian National Railway. This one went up a bit, about a buck 50 a share. So about $100 out of the $1,000 came from CN Rail. They went up today as the strike out in BC seemed to be getting solved throughout the day, which helps their supply chain, their logistics chain to make sure that inventory is flowing from those ports coming in from other countries. Canadian Utilities also a nice day, up 0.8% here today. So lots of my utilities and industrials really coming through. Diversified Royalty Corp, another one that's up nicely, up 1.4% on the day. This company owns trademarks for companies like Mr. Lube, etc., Oxford Learning Centers, a couple other businesses that they take part in, like Air Miles, and they just get top line royalty revenues and share them with shareholders. First Capital Realty. Oh, this is interesting. A REIT down 0.7% on the day. So my other REITs so far have been up about 0.3, 0.5. So this one is a bit of an anomaly. Definitely did not help me get to the 1,000. Actually, it was a bit of a laggard. Continuing down here, Fortis, similar to Canadian Utilities, not surprising, drove me up 0.9%, about 50 cents a share. So that's 80 bucks overall with my position in this account. So a pretty nice help towards that $1,000 in gains today. HDIF, which is just an ETF, slightly up there for me as well, continuing to go down. Huddle, another cover call ETF. This one was flat on the day. JWell, I believe JWell was flat to slightly down. Going over to Keg Royalty, this one looks like it got a pretty nice jump, up over 2% on the day. So offsetting some of the weaknesses on some of those cover call ETFs on Keg Royalty there. Continuing down, Life, another cover call ETF. This one was about flat, so no big swing there. Continuing on, Northwest Healthcare. This stock has been hell for me over the last 3 months, down over 20%. But on the day, let's call it flat, up 2 cents a share. Not really making any leeway for me though. Rogers Communications up 1% on the day, and then also Restaurant Brands International. That one's about flat. So Rogers definitely a bit of a help there on that stock, but not a huge swing. Going on into RioCan, another REIT. That one's about flat on the day. And then TD Bank. So here's another bank. Scotiabank you saw was up about a 1.5%. Another one here with TD Bank up 1.5%, about a buck 20 a share. So that's another 50 bucks in the bank for me in terms of my gains today. ZDI up about 1%. This is a pretty big position in this portfolio, about $10,000. So 1% there is 100 bucks towards the $1,000. You can start seeing how this has added up throughout the day. ZWB is a cover call ETF on the Canadian bank. So we saw Scotiabank up, we saw TD up. As a byproduct of that, ZWB was up over 1% on the day as well. So that's another source of growth. And then lastly, ZWB up almost 1% with the broader Canadian high dividend market. So if I'm just going to go over the Canadian stocks in terms of what the main drivers were before going into the US stocks, it was primarily my banks. You got Bank of Nova Scotia, you got TD Bank there at the bottom. Then some of my ETFs, ZDI up $100 on the day, ZWB, ZWC both up on the day with their Canadian dividend exposure, which generally went up. Rogers Communications and some of my other utilities and infrastructure companies like Canadian Utilities, like CN Rail, like Fortis, those really drove me up 300, 400, 500 bucks on the day. So I'd say that was almost half of the total portfolio gain and almost all of the Canadian portfolio gain on the day. Now, going over into my US portfolio, you see I'm up 360 bucks. So if I translate that to US dollars, Canadian dollars rather, gets me to like 475, and that's how I got over $1,000 on the day if I were to add the two together. So let's go through the Canadian portfolio here. One of the biggest jumpers on the day was Google. Google, also known as Alphabet here, up almost 5% on the day. So a huge jump there for my portfolio. Really helped the overall portfolio out. Next, Coca-Cola up about 1%. So you see here, more generally off to a strong start. McDonald's was about flat, down 0.1% on the day, but not a really big swing. Meta continues to go up over 1% on the day. Looking at this one on the week, it's up 7%. On the month, up 15%. 3-month, 40%. Last year, 100%. So this one's just been in a long rally here since dropping down to under $100 in the last year. So wild ride for Meta shareholders. Going into Microsoft, Microsoft was up 1.6% on the day on news that it appears their acquisition of Activision will go through. Realty income up 1 point on the day. That's a triple net retail REIT in the U.S. Procter & Gamble flat on the day. So similar story with P&G, McDonald's, Coca-Cola bit the trend a little bit with being up 0.8, but generally those consumer staples were pretty flat on the day today. AT&T, no movement here, and then continuing to go down. We got some small upside on Visa stock, and lastly on Vici Properties. Wow, a big down day on Vici. That's actually really interesting. I'm just going to type in Vici to see if something got announced on the news cycle. Going down here, looks like there was just a couple downgrades in the analyst environment, which I could not care less about. So that doesn't really have too much merit behind it, in my opinion. Going back to the overall portfolio. So you see here in my US portfolio, more broad gains. Google was the big jump at 5% as they released more of their Bard AI products in other global geographies. So some analysts are bullish on that. But even on top of that, got really good performance from Meta, Microsoft that we just saw. Coca-Cola had a pretty good day. Realty income up a point. Visa up a bit. So all of these things add up, $50 here, $100 here, to get me to that $1,000 on the day between my USD and my Canadian account. So I'd say overall about half of it came from utilities, a quarter of it came from Canadian banking, a quarter of it came from my US tech, big tech stocks. So pretty broad range of drivers to get me to the plus $1,000 on the day. Lots of days it swings back the other way. I'm not really a trader to any great extent. So it doesn't really matter what the unrealized shifts day to day are. I'm more focused on just accumulating dividends over time, growing dividends, and hopefully over time I get capital appreciation on these positions as well. But thank you guys for watching this with me as I just go through my portfolio, see what stocks and sectors really drove the gain on the day. If you like this type of content, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.